Your call has been placed in conference. The following participant has entered the conference.
John T. Matheson.
The conference is now being recorded. The following participant has entered the conference.
Judy Moss.
The following participant has entered the conference.
Ruth Walsh.
The following participant has entered the conference.
Walton Boyer.
The following participant has entered the conference.
Dan Seeger.
The following participant has entered the conference.
Jane Hurley.
The fo-
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan. I've listened to the log of who is in the conference, but I wonder if it might be useful for us to begin by just taking a roll call, so we'll know who all is here. Walt Boyer, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Walt. Jack, coming? Jack coming?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, thank you. Jean Hurley?
I think
She left.
Yeah, I heard that she was here, and then I heard that she left.
Yep.
So she may have connectivity difficulties. We'll wait for her. Judy Moss?
Here.
I have a regret from Bob Nicholson. His wife, Betty, has an important medical conference at this time, and he had to be there. Welcome, Jean. This is Dan. We're just taking the roll call, and we're now counting you as being with us.
Thank
Pete
you.
Straub? Pete Straub? Pete is not yet here. Marlene? Marlene is not yet here. Ruth?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Jack Matheson?
Yes.
Charlie Paulson? Charlie is not here. So we're waiting for Peter and Marlene, and I believe we have a quorum without them, but perhaps we should give them another minute to join us. I haven't had regrets from either of them. Well, maybe, friends, if it's okay, we'll begin and hope they will join us. You've all received the minutes of the November 5th meeting.
Yes.
Jack, I don't believe you've had any corrections.
there may have been one initially, but whatever it is in what you have. I don't recall.
Okay. Good. Is there a motion that we accept the minutes as circulated?
I so move, Jean.
Is there a second? Is there a second on the minutes?
Non-voting Matheson seconds it.
Okay. Well, Jack, I heard that Judy Moss, who's a voting member, has seconded the Jean's motion that we accept the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hello, Gerard. This is Dan Seeger. Welcome to the board meeting as a guest. We have just accepted the minutes as circulated, and we're now turning to item 3 on the agenda.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we have number 3 is a brief report on the President's trip to Washington State and Oregon. I expected that Bob Nicholson and I would speak to this. Unfortunately, I don't know, Gerard, if you've heard this, but Bob has to be at an important medical conference with his wife, and so he's not with us. Gerard, do you want to say anything by way of beginning?
No, I'll leave it to you to speak, Dan.
Okay. Well, let me say, I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this. Let me say it was a very exhilarating trip as far as I was concerned, because I met so many wonderful people who are really very involved and committed to NaCCRA and also to the whole issue of strengthening CCRC life. I was only there for 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I had kind of a wall-to-wall schedule. I met with, in each state, in Washington State and Oregon, I met both with resident leaders from diverse CCRCs around each respective state, and I also met with general membership in large meetings to give a speech. I gained the impression that in Washington, there really, for all practical purposes, already is a kind of NaCCRA Washington State, in that there are a group of people who are kind of used to meeting with each other, who come from diverse parts of the state, who come from different CCRCs, and who sort of self-identify as NaCCRA activists. Gerard, you can help me with Oregon. In Oregon, I also met with a lot of enthusiastic CCRC residents. There was a leadership group, which Gerard has been convening, which I gathered was convening for about the 5th time in order to meet with me. But they are not quite as ready as the Washington people to form a NaCCRA state affiliate at this point. Nevertheless, they are used to meeting regularly and used to sharing concerns about CCRC life. Gerard, is that a fair summary?
Yes, it is, and I might point out that there are some substantial differences between Washington and Oregon. That Washington lends itself more to being organized. A first point would be Bob Nicholson was appointed by Leading Age of Washington to put on sessions for CCRC resident leaders. Bob has been working this for 4 years now, and there are more issues that the residents in Washington have to deal with. There is a need for more regulation. There is very little regulation of CCRCs, and there are some financial issues with CCRCs up there that need to be addressed.
Marlene, this is Dan. Welcome to the conference. We're now on item number 3 on the agenda.
Okay.
The other thing that struck me, and I'm not sure this is too germane to our membership issues right now, but I was very surprised to be in Seattle and to find that there are as many as 5 CCRCs within walking distance of downtown Seattle, which for an Easterner was a very interesting experience, since out here in the East, most of our CCRCs are in rural areas with big spread out campuses of cottages and garden apartments, whereas here we had a sort of conglomeration of high-rise CCRCs within a stone's throw of each other. The other thing that was interesting to me was that of that little cluster of CCRCs, only one offered a Type A contract. All the others were Type B or Type C contracts. The other thing was that in Oregon, some people had traveled 4.5 hours to go from Rogue Valley Manor to Portland in order to be in the meeting with me, and I was rather impressed with that. And I also felt that both in Washington and Oregon, there's a much more lively sense of the need for residents to sort of band together in their own self-interest than there is out here in Pennsylvania, where most people are kind of satisfied and quiescent with respect to the management of CCRCs. And I did take it as Gerard has just mentioned, that some of this more sharpened activism is a result of concern about finances. There are some CCRCs which I believe, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack coming up, I believe would be considered underwater in terms of their finances. anyway,
Question: Are the Washington and the Oregon CCRCs younger in terms of how long they've been in? Actually, have been started.
Yes, I believe it's fair. I believe it would be fair to generalize that in general they're sort of in the 5 to 10 year range, rather than the 30-year range, if you know what I mean. Is that fair to say? Is that fair to say, Gerard? It's not totally true, but it's a fair generalization.
Well, in Oregon, many of the CCRC that were represented at the meeting with you go back 50 years or so. However, Mirabella is only about 3 or 4 years old. Mary's Woods, where the meeting was held, is 11 or 12 years old. But most of the others go back about 50 years.
Oh, good. That's good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Is that 50 years as a CCRC, or did it start as a nursing home? And then
No. I would say 50 years as a CCRC.
Okay. Thank you.
Interesting. That's interesting.
And these were mostly faith-based CCRCs. I think they've gone away from the faith-based, except for Friends View. In Rogue Valley, I would include in that. Now, and then we have one Terwilliger Plaza, which is founded by a teachers group and is basically resident-owned.
Really?
Great. Now, we'll see. Let me see. The only other thing I would mention is that, first of all, Bob Nicholson, who is not here, so therefore I can talk about him behind his back, is amazing in the energy and verve with which he kind of maestros or orchestrates activities in his sphere. He also has a very good sense of humor and a very nice way of blending seriousness with humor, and is very popular with people out there. We have a great asset in Bob Nicholson. I tend to be a little graver and less witty than he does, so I think we made a good counterpoint for each other. The people out there were very kind to me, treated me as, a very welcome foreign visitor, you might say, out-of-town celebrity. They made it quite clear to me, a number of people made it quite clear to me how much they appreciated the Lifeline articles I've been writing. And one person even created table tents, these little things that you put on the dining tables with excerpts from my speeches on them. So I really felt very, appreciated by the people who came to meet with me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good news.
Now, the thing is, I think we can, if there's no more questions, or Gerard, do you have anything to add to what's been said so far?
Well, I would agree with your comments about Bob Nicholson, and he's a moving force behind me in Oregon. He's good for his job.
Right. Shall we, our friends, ready to turn to item 4? We're looking for a way to expedite, you might say, the creation of additional membership categories or different ways to bring members into NaCCRA. And I think we've reached a point where we all agree that individual memberships in the national NaCCRA are really the backbone of our strength. In March of 2014, our individual memberships, after 13 years of existence, were at 1,100. Today, 6 months later, our individual memberships are at 1,600. So from Bennett's point of view, we have had a meteoric increase in membership over the last 6 months or so. We don't know exactly how this 50% increase in membership can be attributed between Bennett's pilot project, between Bob Nicholson's reach out efforts, and the various efforts I've been making. We don't really know how to break this down. It doesn't really matter. The fact is that we seem to be on a growth spurt. Let's hope it continues in membership. So we want to find ways to sort of get these members hovering closer to us and incorporated into our membership categories. So the officers have proposed a motion, which you all see in the agenda, which sort of sets out a procedural way for us to advance on this path. It's really just a way of getting a subcommittee together to sort of think more deeply about this. So I'm wondering if there's any alternative motion before we consider this motion, and if there's no alternative motion, if someone is willing to offer the motion proposed by the officers.
I'll offer an alternative motion. I think there's question whether the officers proposed it. We only have 3 offices, and only 2 offices proposed it. 1 did not. The alternative motion is that no changes should be made until the bylaws committee looks at the complete bylaws. That for months I've been after a structural change, and now I think there is agreement that there should be a structural change, and I think it should be made.
Good. I do apologize to Judy. I have tried to consult with the officers as I develop the agendas, and it gets a little bit circular, and I consulted with Judy, or Judy got back to me first, Jack got back to me second. I kind of thought Jack's proposal was in alignment with Judy's general thinking, but I may have misjudged that and didn't get back to Judy, so I do apologize, Judy, for that procedural glitch. So Judy has proposed a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, Jean Hurley, I second that motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion of the motion?
Yeah, I feel like Judy's position that this should be deferred, that this really should not precede the bylaws. We should not try to make bylaws conform to something that is this. I just don't think that we should make a decision and then make the bylaws conform to the decision at this point. This needs to be more discussion, more thought.
Right.
So, okay, yes, someone else?
No, this is Jack.
Yes, Jack.
The motion is consistent with today's bylaws, so there's no need to change the bylaws. But the question is, this motion is adopted, does it mean that the developing leaders in Illinois and Washington would have to pay the $500 before we'll acknowledge them? That might be is that a sense of the board? These developing organizations should be paying the $500 and plus the chapter dues, I guess, if they haven't paid that.
And
you go ahead.
As I recall, the motion is for 1 year only, and that doesn't make sense either to put a 1 year restriction on it. And I agree with...
This Walt Boyer, I disagree with that statement. I think a new state organization that's just getting started probably doesn't have very much funds, and it may take them a year in order to establish a fund balance where they could afford to nation to the national organization. Therefore, I think the waiving of the first year dues as a state organization comes into existence is an appropriate thing to do.
If I could step out of the chair just for a minute and make a comment. The best as I can understand the situation, the bylaws seem to be written to take account of state associations and chapters and community chapters which more or less exist independently or even precede NaCCRA historically. Whereas I think what I'm worried about is that we have 4 states, as far as I can understand the situation, Ohio, Illinois, Washington, and possibly Oregon, where there is a new dynamic which is not foreseen by the bylaws and where people are more or less dangling with our being unable to respond to them, sort of adequately in terms of the bylaws. So I'm mainly worried about not leaving nascent state chapters which are ready to form under our wing as opposed to independently, just dangling for a long period of time. And I imagine that the bylaws will take a while to really redo. I mean, it's a big project. So that's why I was a little anxious to move forward with something. But I do understand and sympathize with the felt need for coherence between this action and the ultimate bylaws. So I don't want to. I just want to indicate the kind of thought that was in my mind as I joined with this motion.
Jean Hurley here, and I have a question. Virginia, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, too, when it comes to finances. But we're paying our $500 a year for membership. What are we getting for that?
Okay, now this is a rhetorical question.
No, it's an honest question.
Okay, well, there was someone else who wanted to speak, so let's hold the honest question and answer it. But there was someone else who was trying to speak.
Yes, I wanted to respond to Walton. I agree that there's a problem getting the $500. My point is that there may be a problem the second year. It seems at this point to put a 1-year restriction on it doesn't make sense.
In other words, it'll be a huge shock the second year.
No, just come down the second year and ask them if they'd like to join now, if they're ready.
And I think we have more fundamental questions. I'm still very concerned by the fact that Florida is 13,000 people, and very few of them are NaCCRA members. I think there are tremendous problems that we have to face up to the structure of the organization. I don't think a piecemeal patch is the way to go. I don't think Oregon, the states you mentioned, will pull away because we haven't done anything for their fee. Let them operate as they are in the conformity with the present way until we make a major change.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. We have Judy's motion on the floor, which has been seconded. We've had discussion. If there's no more discussion, shall I ask for a vote? All in favor of Judy's motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Opposed.
So I have, I'm afraid we'll have to take a roll call vote because I couldn't tell what was going on. Is that okay with people? Walt, how do you vote?
Nay.
Did you say nay?
I say negative.
Negative, okay. Jack?
Negative.
Jean?
I'm in favor, yes.
You seconded it. Judy is yes. She proposed it. Bob Nicholson is not here. Pete is not here. Marlene?
Negative.
Okay. And then Ruth doesn't vote. So I have 3 negatives and 2 yeses. So I'm afraid that Judy's motion fails. I have negative Walt, Jack, and Marlene.
Okay, thanks.
And I have positive Jean and Judy.
Got it.
So now I guess I have to ask if there's a motion in favor of the proposal that I mistakenly attributed to the officers, but really comes from Jack and me.
Well, this is Jack. I'll move it.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second. Marlene.
Who seconded? Marlene seconded. Okay. Is there any discussion of the motion other than what we've already had?
Yeah, nobody has answered my question yet about what those of us who are paying dues are getting for our dues that those who wouldn't be paying dues would be getting.
Okay, so we do have Jean's question. Is there anyone who wants to answer the question?
One of the things is 10 copies of Lifeline.
Yes, exactly.
In other words, who gets, in response to their membership, who in North Carolina, Virginia, I'm sorry, who in Virginia gets Lifeline?
All the members.
I just get
all the
my own
members.
Copy.
Every member.
We get extra copies because Westminster Canterbury is a community member, so we get a dozen extra copies that I can hand out to other people. But that's community, not state.
State gets 10 also.
Yep.
So in other words, the whole state gets 10 copies to share. Okay.
Plus those that go into individual CCRCs with members who have paid their
Plus individual. That's right, Ruth. So plus individuals who have paid their $20, but this is not the state's contribution. The individuals who have paid $20 also get it.
Right.
But for their $500, the state gets, it sounds to me like 100 copies of Lifeline.
Well, they get a little more than that because the state presidents are asked to participate in the nominating committee for new officers each year. So
for new directors, right?
Yes, and so that is something that you're getting with the state membership.
In Lifeline, it
into
made the nominations open to anybody. Anybody could nominate.
That's
right.
True.
Correct.
But the majority of them do come from the state presidents, and the state presidents
well, maybe so, but in Lifeline, anybody could make a nomination. And when I was the president of NaCCRA, I didn't get any extra copies of Lifeline. As president of the Virginia State Association, I do get extra copies for the community, Westminster Canterbury, because we're a community. But that's it. And we can always send people extra copies of Lifeline.
Correct.
They don't have to be non-dues paying members.
Right.
All we have to do is just send them copies. If that's.
I think the discussion is shedding light on the reason why the Bylaws Committee needs to take a coherent look at membership in general. I mean, it is hard for us to answer this question that Jean has raised. It's very difficult to answer this question. The only addition I would add to what's been said so far, though, is that I tend to worry if we act too much like we're selling a product in return for membership, because I believe we're not selling a product. We're enlisting people in a cause. We're enlisting their support in a collaborative effort to protect their interests. And I don't think you can deal with this as if it were a product and say, you know, what are we getting for $20? It's a different concept. So I would like to avoid the language of commercialism as if we're selling something. But nevertheless, Jean's question does, to me, illuminate the need for Judy's insistence that we do a coherent review of the bylaws. However, we do have on the floor a motion. We've had some discussion of it. Is there any more discussion of it before I call for a vote?
I would just like to comment that a vote of NaCCRA of a 2-3 is not overwhelming, but yes, it will pass.
Okay, so let me call for the vote then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Opposed?
Okay, so I'm guessing that we have 3 in favor and 2 opposed. So the motion passes, but as Judy observed, it passes narrowly. Okay, are we ready to move on to item 5? Pete Straub is not with us today. I haven't had a regret from him, but he's been really, really helpful in getting us set up with arrangements for our meeting in March at his CCRC Green Spring. And I think everything is falling in place, and I think it remains for me to propose to you all at the January meeting a detailed agenda for what will happen on the Sunday afternoon when we have a general membership meeting in March.
I do think we need some kind of information for the Lifeline. When you look at the schedule, this Lifeline will come out probably near the beginning of January. We won't have another one until March, which is too late for registration for the meeting.
I see. Okay, so
let's prepare some kind of announcement,
right,
and perhaps a registration form. And if
right,
you can get us information about the motels, I think it needs to be in the next Lifeline.
Excellent. And can you remind? I know it's in your emails, but can you remind us of the deadline for the next Lifeline, Marlene?
The 14th, which is a Sunday.
The 13th of this. Is this coming? It's this coming Sunday, I guess, or Sunday a week away, right?
Yeah.
A week and a half away.
Yeah.
Okay, we will definitely work on that and get you an announcement. No doubt about that. Okay, let's move on to item 6. This is a very interesting matter. I've discussed this in some detail with Bennett Napier. Now that we're really reaching a budget crunch, if we could do more of our if we could eliminate face-to-face meetings, we would really help our budget out a lot. And the technology that Bennett is familiar with would enable us to have much more fluid and easy teleconferences. The cost, which of course is the first consideration, is $50 a month for us to enlist in the teleconferencing capacity. So that would be $50 a month. That'd be $600 a year. Am I right?
Yes.
$600 a year, which is like one airfare.
You probably wouldn't do it the 2 months that we're having meetings.
And that's right. There were some meetings. You don't have to. You can subscribe and unsubscribe on a month-by-month basis. There's no long-term commitments one way or the other. There's also a free month introduction. So it's $50 a month. It would enable us to see each other on our screens during the teleconference. We would look like thumbnails, except for the person who had the floor, who would be large. But what it would enable us to do would be to see hand signals when people went to speak, so that people would not have to interrupt each other or would not have to jump in quicker than anybody else in order to get a word in edgewise. It would just enable us to behave more as if we were in the same room, being sensitive to each other and being alert to each other when it comes to participating in the dialogue. I find it very difficult to facilitate a meeting when I don't know who wants to speak because I can't see anybody. And this would help that out a great deal. So,
is there any way we can try it for a month before we make a decision?
yes, there is a way we could try for a month before we make a decision, and Bennett is willing to coach us through it. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that it does require that each of us have a video camera associated with our equipment. Now, most of us who are using a laptop, which is less than 5 years old, will have that video equipment automatically built in, even if we don't know it's there. People who are using older equipment would have to go to Best Buy and spend $20 to get a video camera to attach to the top of their screen. It also would require us to download free software into our computers. So it's also possible that if someone can't deal with the video capacity, that is, they don't know how to go to Best Buy and buy a video camera, they could participate on an audio basis only, but they would also be part of they would be able to type a message saying they want to speak and therefore get recognized in the proper turn. And they could be heard but not seen. So
is software compatible with Macs as well as PCs?
My understanding is it works with both.
Okay.
So if it's and now Bennett has volunteered at no extra cost to us to coach us through an introductory session. I was thinking when I was discussing with him that I would hate to risk a real business meeting on this experiment because we need our business meetings. I mean, there's too much agenda, and if it sort of collapsed, we'd be a month behind. So he agreed that he'd be willing to coach us through a practice session, which we would schedule and set up separate from an ordinary business meeting. So I guess I'd like to hear an expression of whether or not this is something people are willing to do at the earliest possible opportunity.
This is Jack. I'll make a motion that we do a practice session within the free month to test it out, and that we ask the president thereafter to report his opinions of how satisfactory this pilot program works.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded.
Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I may be the only one who probably will do only the audio part. I don't have any capacity for cameras on my television. It's old. I don't do Skype, and I don't do a lot of things that my kids and grandkids can do. Right.
Okay. Well, I would like to encourage everybody. This is not necessarily for Gene only. Everybody to exploit their 8-year-old grandchildren to the hilt to get set up for this, because the grandchildren will know exactly what to do, and they'll do it in a flash of an eye for you. So
it's really horrifying that that's the case too.
Anyway, that's the modern world. So we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now, I'm turning to item number 7, which is Chris Bird. I had a very lovely conversation with Chris Bird. He interpreted himself to me as Brookdale's sort of vice president in charge of resident relations. He didn't exactly use those terms, and that's the way he tried to describe his job to me, as if it's his job to sort of keep on top of resident concerns, respond to them, and sort of keep the management and the residents kind of on the same wavelength. And he would be very interested in having an informal conversation with us. And the way he described his goals for the conversation would simply have a time for sharing with a group of knowledgeable residents about what works and what doesn't work in terms of resident management, communication and relationships and negotiations and things like that. He sounds like I'm giving a very subjective point of view, obviously, here, but he sounds like a very sort of sensitive and knowledgeable guy and very compatible with us. And we more or less have decided that unless there was some stop in my mind, that we would go ahead and schedule ourselves to have a dialogue with him during one of our meetings. I did review the calendar with him. Unfortunately, our January meeting, he will be in Europe, but he is available for our February meeting. I told him that we probably wouldn't want to give more than half an hour to this, and so if it's agreeable to you all, he is willing to join our conference call on February 7th at 1:15 Eastern Time. In other words, I told him we'd want to have 15 minutes first, and that he would join us at 1:15 for a half hour on the February 1st Wednesday.
The 4th.
So, the 4th, right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, I guess I'd like to know if there's any questions or discussion, and if not, if there's a motion.
I so move. Jean Hurley.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. That was Marlene seconding. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Now, the last item on our agenda is the workshop that Jean Hurley, with support from Jack Cumming, set up. And Jean, you've given us a blow-by-blow description of the orders of your crusade to get this submitted. We really appreciate the efforts you made and the obstacles you overcame. I wonder if anyone has any comment. Or Jean, first, do you want to add anything to what you've already circulated to us?
No, I said everything I had to say.
Good. It was very concise and very good. We really appreciate it. Is there any comments from anyone?
It's Ruth here.
Yes, Ruth, go ahead.
Could I just commend Jean for her stick-to-itiveness and her courage to proceed? She just did a sterling job, and I'm just so proud that she did this. And I thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Ruth.
Mm.
This is Jack. I want to just what Ruth just said. Jean, you took this on fairly. It's something onerous. It's sort of a long shot, but it's something that's very valuable for NaCCRA and a value for residents everywhere, and we appreciate you doing it.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Great. I sense these sentiments are generally shared. My thought was that, I don't know if Leading Age will buy this or not. I hope they do buy it. But if they don't, it's nevertheless contains a valuable framework for a workshop we could run on our own.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a framework of excellent considerations and questions that if Leading Age doesn't collaborate with us, we can nevertheless do it as a NaCCRA thing, provided we round up the proper resources. So it seems to me that we don't have to fear that this is any kind of wasted effort, because if Leading Age doesn't subscribe to it, we can nevertheless carry it forward on our own.
One question: How soon will Jean know, or would she get a response to that application? I know, Jack, you said it was a long process.
Last year they didn't tell me until June.
Is that right?
Yep.
And that was for October.
There was no correspondence. No.
Did they acknowledge? Did they acknowledge the submission?
Yes. I got a confirmation that
online.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. So I guess we just have to sit and wait. But thank you very much, Jean, for all the work you put into this. It was really great. And for making the tight deadline. It was a tight deadline, and you made it in spite of everything. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Friends, if there is no other business that should come before us, I think we're ready to adjourn. I hear...
Yes. So what do you push star or pound or what?
We hang up. We just hang up.
The following participant has left the conference.
Marlene.
The following participant has left the conference.
NaCCRA.
The following participant has left the conference.
Judy Moss.
The following participant has left the conference.
Jane Hurley.
The following participant has left the conference.
Ruth Walsh.
The following participant has left the conference.
Walton Boyer.
The following participant has left the conference.
Gerard Highland.